Coming up today on Locked On at Texas Tech, we get some early camp standouts from Joey McGuire, and we hear from QB1 on his progress so far this fall and the big boys up front. Next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you as we are here in the midst of the week. Pads are on for Texas Tech, and I'm talking full pads at this point, so starting to read between the lines a little bit as we'll take a listen to some sound from Red Raider head coach Joey McGuire as well as Texas Tech quarterback Behren Morton, and gleaning opportunities are available. Who's standing out? Who's maybe surprising some folks, newcomers, returners, all of the above, as we'll continue to roll through this week with some thoughts from Texas Tech fall camp. But Chris, let's kick off this here Fandango with a comment from Red Raider head coach Joey McGuire talking about some of those early standouts through just about a week of camp.
Let me start with this. Josh Kelly, Caleb Douglas, and Coy Aiken have been absolutely incredible. I mean, just at different times dominant. Coy had a huge touchdown. The other day it was mixed downs. It wasn't a team compete period, but he had a huge touchdown. Those guys have been dominant. But from the first three practices to now, the next three practices, what you've seen is the two guys that didn't go through spring football are playing faster, and that's Jalen Conyer and Micah Hudson. Both of those guys really struggled our first three practices. Number one, because they didn't go through spring, so the amount of offense that we have in right now, the amount of install, I think kind of overwhelmed them, which is great. That's what you want to do during camp. But the last three practices, especially the last two practices, you've seen those guys really trend in a good direction. You know, defensively, keep coming back. I think Isaac Smith has been better these last three practices than the first three, so that's knocking some rust off of him. A.J. McCarty has been exceptional all through camp. He's playing really fast, great effort. And then the inside linebackers, you know, all four of them, and what Dingle can do in the yellow jersey, man, he's doing a great job. But, you know, really pleased with that.
Some names that I know we like to hear mentioned this early on, whether it's some of those wide receivers, Isaac Smith, A.J. McCarty getting the mention, which I know is nice to hear for Red Raider fans. So what'd you make of some of those mentions?
Well, these are a lot of these names are guys that we've talked about, and it makes you feel better, like you know that we are kind of pointing in the right direction with a lot of the names that we have discussed, you know, along the summer and off season and back into the spring. I think it's important to note that, you know, there's a clear thought process internally, and certainly with folks like us that feel like the offensive skill has had and I think we need to try to define massive, but a massive upgrade. And I don't know if we just don't need to set the expectation too high, but this has been pretty consistent thought process really since the spring started, even until now. And you just need to keep these guys healthy. I don't feel like I'm stepping out of bounds at all by saying I think Josh Kelly, with his craft and what he's asked to do in the position he plays, he may be the best player on your team. And I think that's heavy praise when you start looking around a bit, but that's just kind of, I think, what you've added. And then I think people forget about Caleb Douglas a little bit. I've tried to remind everybody, we could talk about all the new guys we want, but don't forget, man, typically it's the Coy Aikens of the world that your internal guys that you hit on, that you develop. They're the ones that sometimes, man, they bear the most fruit when all is said and done. And we saw glimpses of this in this offense and from him last year, even though he missed portions of the season because of injury. So that is fun, and you start mixing in, you know, guys like Conyers and Micah Hudson. Defensively, though, again, I'm here for the Isaac Smith praise. You know
course.
where I'm at on that. Yeah. He's missed some football, and I think it's important to note that, again, he's knocking some of that rust off. But A.J. McCarty was when he landed here, I think I remember saying something to the effect of, if he was eligible this year, I feel like he would start, or he would factor in heavily. And then, what happens is when you have to, essentially what he's having to do is redshirt or sit out, you're not sure where you fit. It's like, well, and coaches try to tell you all the time, foot on the gas, practice hard, but when there's no payoff, it's just hard to stay mentally engaged. And then, he gets the most oddest situation and right before a bowl game ever is like, oh, by the way, you can play today, even though you hadn't played all year. Okay. So he's going to factor in, and he is one of your most experienced guys. And again, people aren't necessarily familiar with him because he sat out last year. This is a Baylor kid that played 30 games for those guys. I mean, and you look around your Luxes, your Baskervilles, your Ledettes, and all those guys. There's not a lot of folks that have played in that range of games. So he's got a lot of experience, and he's got a chance to really factor in and provide depth or be a starter or whatever. But I love the names that we're hearing here.
Yeah, no question. McCarty, to me, maybe one of the guys that will be, under the radar, but emerge as an impactful guy once things really get going. And I kind of forget about the experience angle. I think just about what he appears to be as a football player and what kind of the scouting report is on him. But the fact that he's seen as much football as he has is no small thing, especially as you're trying to fill some shoes of guys who had seen a ton, really lost a lot of experience, particularly in that defensive backfield, even though you still got some to work with, but lost quite a bit from a season ago. And I can't wait for the year for Coy Aiken, and I hope he's got some good luck from a health standpoint to be available. But Chris, he really finished strong last year, and he seemed like one of those guys that as time went on and there was more time for them together, that developed some reliable chemistry with Behren Morton. It's hard to say like, oh, he was a favorite target or something like that. I don't know if it's that simple to break it down that way. But it did seem like there was some chemistry there. And this is, again, going back to a year where I guess Monday through Friday, there wasn't a whole lot of opportunity to work on that kind of thing. So it wasn't like, hey, all this practice time is helping us develop a feel for one another. But regardless, whatever it was, it seemed to add up to on Saturday there being a connection. And, of course, whatever day the bowl game was played on, there was a connection on display that day as well.
I think if you were to get behind the scenes and look at their phones, if Behren it was ever in a position, really since he's been here, hey man, I'm going to go throw, or hey, you want to go throw, whatever. I guarantee you that first text is going to Coy Aiken, and that just kind of speaks to their friendship, their chemistry, and all that stuff. Even when he was dinged up and having to sit out, I think though that's just kind of they're kind of the same guy. West Texas guy, both wanted to be here and just kind of the same timeline. Both have dealt with some injuries, both super tough, have played through it. I mean, all that stuff. But yeah, there's a pretty tight knit little connection there, and that's why that just benefits somebody like Coy. Whenever if you were playing college fantasy football, might not be a bad guy to pick up because he's going to be looked at more often than not because there's a trust factor. But the quarterback trusts him and knows what he's going to get and knows where he's going to be and all those things. So yeah, there's definitely some synergy with those two. But I think that's, and it's hard to build that with new pieces. Yeah. It'll happen, and there'll be some on the same page and not on the same page moments, but more often than not, he and Coy, I think Behren and Coy are going to be, operating in unison just because they've been around each other. They know how each other, off the field and all those kinds of things. And that's important.
Well, another reason why you may be looking at him, at Coy Aiken, from a fantasy perspective a little closer is because of all the attention that a guy like Josh Kelly is going to get. Maybe Douglas, maybe Hudson, but that's going to open up some opportunities certainly elsewhere as well. And, back to Kelly, I thought it was interesting to hear some comments in the conversation you got to have with him at Texas Tech Local Media Day about going up against his old buddy Bralyn Lux a connection from Fresno State, right? When they were both there once upon a time and obviously spent some time together in practice. And here they are again at the tail end of their college careers, battling it out once again. Now, Kelly suggested we should know what the answer is when asked who's winning these battles. Lux might have a different answer, but that was a cool connection I hadn't really considered, going back to Fresno State and now being back together again in practice.
And I don't want to say, because this isn't entirely true, but I think partly true. But I mean, Braylon Lux is a big reason why Josh Kelly is here.
So it was the first call he got, right, Kelly, after he made that decision?
That's right. And I think, hey, Bralyn, what do you think about Josh? I mean, yes. I mean, it's just one of those. And I think Josh already, there's somebody there that I know that's been through it, can tell me how it's going to be, how the program runs on a daily basis. And there was just a nice fit there. But those are two of your, those ex Fresno State Bulldogs are two of your most high profile guys. I mean, that's a starter at each spot on either side of the ball. And the thing about Braylon Lux, man, he doesn't care. He feels like he is 6'5", 800 pounds. He is going to, I mean, and so that's iron sharpens iron. That should make each guy better. And I think you'll see that Braylon Lux is pretty good at football. Again, we've touched on this some. Yeah. Again, he kind of pushed his way into the starting lineup again because he didn't care last year. I mean, if I tell you this back in January of a year ago, and you already have the announcement that Rashad Williams and Malik Dunlap are coming back, and you already know about Tony and Jalen, you're like, got D tackle locked up, got the two corners locked up. If I tell you add a kid, after spring, and he's going to come in and start plenty of games and not ask nicely about doing it, you probably don't necessarily believe me. But this is where he's at. And I think he didn't ask. And again, he's just not going to apologize. He's just one of those guys that plays big. He's got some swag to him. He's going to talk his S and back it up. And he's going to, and then there was the plays that he made last year that didn't count. No fault of his own. Yeah. But I think that's important to note. So I love that they're going against each other on a daily basis because that should only make each of them better.
Yeah, you're thinking about some of that iron sharpening iron in that instance, for sure. And thank you, Bralyn, for coming and being a good player and being a part of the appeal to another good player in Josh Kelly to be a Red Raider.
Because I'm going to tell you, think about the high-profile wideouts that Braylon Lux will go against straight up this year. He's going to more than likely get paired up against the opposition. T-Mac of Arizona. This is a top 10 or top 15 pick in the draft. Travis Hunter may be the best player in college football. He's certainly a phenomenal receiver. Brennan Presley at Oklahoma State is the ultimate glue guy and third down guy and just moves the chains at Oklahoma State. And on it goes. So having somebody like Josh going against him, I mean, that's because, I mean, the tests for a guy like Braylon Lux are going to be stiff this year for sure.
No question. And I don't mind a cornerback that's 6'5" or whatever, but we've gotten by with some diminutive in stature before as well. I'm having some flash memories of our guy Bruce Jones. Once upon a time, Riverdale guy, I think, maybe I have that name wrong, but California guy was part of that JUCO influx in that group. And that dude was like a pit bull. I loved him as a quarterback. I know he was small or undersized, but like you're saying about Braylon Lux, he didn't care. He didn't notice it. Was a tough son of a gun and would love to get similar things from Lux as well.
I think Bruce was part of the. I may have my years off, but I want to say, wasn't he not a part of Sadeo Foster and Spencer Brinkley? Am I right there? The linebacker.
Was it also Will Smith?
Will Smith?
I think is it Riverdale? I feel like I have that name wrong.
Maybe Riverside Community College, something like that. And I may be slightly off, but there was some junior college halls that you had. That I certainly that hit pay dirt. There was plenty that did not, but Bruce was he got by on toughness and angles and kind of like
vinegar.
Khalid Nazaruddin, another one, a D2 guy that came here. But Braylon's got some skills and juice to him. He's just he's not. I think let's see here. Yeah, he's 5'11", 185 is what he's listed at. But I'm telling you, plays so much bigger and more physical which is what Coach Yates and Coach DeRuiter have talked a lot about.
Became your most consistent disruptor in the backfield. I'm sorry, in the defensive backfield a season ago. So hopefully going to be able to build off of that. Another guy he's been going up against in practice is the QB, Behren Morton, who we got to hear from this week. And it sounds like he's enjoying this camp. Let's take a listen to Red Raider quarterback Behren Morton. First, today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Never sweat buying tickets to your favorite events again with Gametime. It's always a breeze using the Gametime app where you're going to find the best last-minute deals. And I love being able to scout out a view from any seat before pulling the trigger. And of course, it's always at the lowest price, guaranteed. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it begins, which means you can finish off that last beer at the tailgate at your own pace, because Gametime is the place to find last-minute seats to any event. They give you the fastest and easiest way to buy tickets, but not just fast and easy, also secure and simple to use. So right now, download the Gametime app and create an account and use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem our promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today for last-minute tickets at the lowest price, guaranteed. Behren Morton, who we got to hear from this week, and it sounds like he's enjoying this camp. Let's take a listen to Red Raider quarterback Behren Morton.
This is my favorite camp by far, for sure. You know, being the guy too, and having full control of the offense has been great. You know, with the new weapons that we got, they make my life a lot easier at practice. So it's real fun to get out there. Shoulders 100%. I'm not missing a rep. I'm throwing over 125 to 150 throws a day, so I'm not missing a rep, and feel really good.
That's good to hear, and it's good to hear him put a number to it, man. That wasn't happening last year.
I guess so. I you know, when I heard it, I'm like, it's a lot of throws.
That's true.
You just hope that, you know, in a week or two or whatever it is, that he still feels okay. Yeah, they know better than me, the medical folks. So they know what he's cleared for and how he feels. He's got to be honest with them and all that. But I think you were kind of this way at the beginning of spring, and then it was just like, man, it's just not. It's kind of getting sore. I want to say too, this is also why they have, not that this is the sole reason, but I think it's a byproduct of it, that they've kind of structured practices. This is a different practice schedule than I've ever seen before. A lot of times it's like, hey man, we're going to practice like 13 or 14 days straight. Yeah, mixing an off day and all that. But 3 days on, 1 off, I think they all are embracing it. And I think that Behren, specifically for that shoulder, is just good. The other thing that we kind of knew, it's hard to explain this as an intangible, but this is just the reality of it. There's just something about when it's your time and there's nobody else that you're like competing with per se. And you have the backup in Cameron Brown that knows his role. He's not here to take Beren's job. That's not what we're looking at here. Will Hammond and Jake Strong are younger guys. They need more development, and they could play for you in time for sure. This is Beren's job, his team, and all that. And there's just something about that I think he has embraced. There is no Tyler Shuck component or like your Sheffield and Potts component to where it's sometimes that can splinter the team. It can, you know, cause some friction and just, you know, whatever, but you don't have any of that. All of that is removed. Everybody's looking to number two. And I think that there's something that comes with that. And I think he's embraced it, and I think he's better for it. There at some point there was going to come a time where, hey dude, here you go. Here's the reins. Don't get bucked off. And you know, let's roll. And I think we're seeing that now. We just have to hope that the shoulder continues to cooperate. But I think he's also kind of taking on more of a leadership now, because I think he feels like he can, whereas before it's like, it's not my place. Yeah. One, I'm not the older guy, and I haven't won the job. Maybe I'm a rotation guy, but now it's like he can really step out of his comfort zone or really embrace some of those aspects too.
Well, and it had to be so frustrating, you know, going back to last year, because I don't know about you, prior to him getting dinged up in Stillwater, Oklahoma, I mean, he came out and was spinning it. and you saw some really good stuff. And I'm sitting there watching that game thinking, all right, well, the Tyler Shuck era is over, because if this is the guy that is behind Shuck and he can look like this, I don't know why you would go back. Now, obviously, you had further injury to deal with, and we didn't know at that time how rocky the quarterback road would be as you moved through the year. But I'm sure he's also got that kind of built-up frustration in knowing what he can do and not really having a chance yet for reasons outside of his control to show that. We've only seen a glimpse of it. So, yeah, hopefully we're going to get that chance as we get into 2024 and progress through the upcoming months. Obviously, a group that will have a lot to say about him having that chance to remain healthy is the 5 guys, or maybe 6 or 7, that are going to be lined up in front of them. And we might include a tight end or 2 in this group as well, I guess. But Behren was also asked about what he had seen so far through camp, up front with the offensive line, and, of course, under a new coach in Clay McGuire. Here again is Behren Morton. Behren was also asked about what he had seen so far through camp, up front with the offensive line, and, of course, under a new coach in Clay McGuire. Here again is Behren Morton.
It's been great. Coach Clay McGuire has done a great job this camp, all the way back in the spring too, of training those guys the way he wants them to play. And it's been nice. I actually got to go yesterday. We were in a compete period, and I got to my 4th and 5th progression like 3 or 4 times, and I haven't been able to do that in some time. So having that ability to get to your 4th and 5th progression, throwing the deep post over to CD has been one of our go-to deals. And so up front they've done a great job.
Deep post to CD, something I'm writing down to remember as we get
I'm
closer.
I'm like, last name Lamb. I'm like, he's holding out. He's holding out for the Cowboys, so maybe he's suiting up. But no, he's talking about Caleb Douglas. Yeah, he's talking about kid. I'm like, CD, we got a guy. Okay, yeah, we're doing initials now. I also love how polished. If you picked up on that, Coach Clay McGuire, because you've got to differentiate. It's not just, you can't just say Coach McGuire. It's like, which one? Okay, So I appreciated that too. And this is also a sign of leadership when a quarterback praises the boys up front. I mean, takes them out for maybe a bunch of ribeyes and some cornbread or something one night before the season. That's the way you got to roll with it, with those big boys up front. And that's my wish for Behren. If you're wishing for stuff, in this, if like you've got some sort of sports, like you hit your knees at night. You're like, I'm going to be superficial here, and I'm then say a prayer for all the things that are really important. But then if we're going to wish for some sports stuff, you just ultimately wish that Behren will get a chance to go at this healthy, and then we'll just see where it takes you. And if it's not good enough, it's not good enough. But that's what he's never had this chance, and that's what I wish for him personally. Is let's just see what the possibilities are if you can get some cooperation from the, and sometimes guys just don't ever get that break. But I that's my wish for him this year, is let's just see where it takes you when he's got some nice pieces around him and he feels good. And you've got some balance and all those things. You've got some continuity. That's what you ultimately want for anybody. But he's been through it, and he just hadn't caught a break really. And I'd like to just see what it looks like if he can get through it with a year healthy.
I thought it was interesting to hear him talk about the progressions as well. And again, it's early in fall camp, so we're all feeling good about everything. I understand there will be a team that's allowed to game plan to destroy all of that and disrupt all of that. So we'll see what happens when you get there on the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and beyond Saturdays. But I thought that was an interesting note that he pointed out. And, I'm sure that if things are working well from an offensive perspective, you want it out quickly to 1 or 2, as it may be. But having the opportunity to maybe get a little bit further into that is not necessarily a bad thing. And I don't know, at least for me, speaking as a fan, probably something that's a little lost on me on occasion when a play doesn't work out and you think, well, that was a dud. But sometimes it's more of a case of not getting to see the entire thing unfold as well. And I know that part, giving a quarterback time, Chris, also plays into your ability to get downfield. If you've got greased lightning on the outside, it still doesn't matter if the quarterback doesn't have enough time to allow that lightning to get downfield. So hopefully that is a big change we see upcoming this season, but obviously only time will tell.
And I would say that we need to be careful about these conversations with him getting to that fourth and fifth progression, because one would also argue, dude, let go of it way before that. Like we
That's
don't
true.
like, and this is something that I think that Zach and him have talked a lot about. Joey and Behren have talked a lot about just the management of the position and himself. In a way, protecting himself. It's like, okay, I can't just sit back here for forever. Yeah, we got some juice on the outside. We got this, we got that, but it's okay to check it down. It's okay to throw it in the stands. It's, whatever it may be, tuck it and run. It's all about, his availability. So hopefully there is plenty of times where he's got all day back there. But that's one of the first things I thought of is like, okay, fourth or fifth, because we're talking one Mississippi, two Mississippi, and boy, and you got 250, 300 bearing down on you from the edge, and you got to have a feel for that, because all it takes is one shot, and somebody crunches you and lands on you, and then it's like we're talking AC sprain or clavicle or whatever it may be. So that's part of it too. Hey man, let's get our new Australian punter out here. It's okay. Like we'll live to see. That's going to have to be part of the maturation here, but he is speaking to, I think, how good the offensive line has been, and that's certainly a positive.
Punting, flipping the field, giving your defense an opportunity to play defense, not a bad thing, at least all the time. Chris, good stuff, man. Appreciate the insight. It was enjoyable to hear from Coach McGuire, and particularly Behren Morton. Hope to hear a lot more from him as we roll through fall camp. Appreciate your time. Enjoyed it, man, and we'll see you on the other side for the next one.
It was a joy. Wasn't it? I think that was well said on your part, and I enjoyed it too. But no, appreciate it. Fun to hear from the head coach and the QB, man, QB1, and all those things. We'll talk to everybody tomorrow. We're getting closer and in pads now, so all that good stuff. So we'll keep grinding away at it.
That's right. Get subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. Best way to help us grow the show is to comment anything below. So go on and do that. For Chris, I'm Casey. Thanks for being out there, and we hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.